States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Welcome, everybody. First order of business is approval of the minutes. Did everybody on the board get a chance to look at the minutes? And everybody's okay with them? Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move.
Okay. Minutes approved. I have something that's not on the agenda that I want to tend to early on. And that is to announce for those of you who haven't been talking about it for the last 15 minutes here, this is the last Parks and Rec Board meeting for our colleague Bill Quinn. After 5 years of service, that went by fast. Yeah. So, yeah, I've only had 24 hours to digest this news, so I'm still sort of a little bit in shock, but we are really going to miss you. You have been a great board member. I'm really kind of bummed out about this, but I'm happy for you because I know you're going to be filling up your time with all sorts of amazing and productive and useful things, and hopefully fun things too. And I'm sure that everybody on the board wants to say something, so I'll start with Bill down at the end. And
I'll keep it brief now. It's my pleasure for the second time to serve with you in some capacity. It was just as good as the first time, and we will, as Mary said, sorely miss you on this board and hope to see you out there once in a while keeping us honest.
Bill, I've had the privilege of being one of your L's for a Santa route, which was so memorable. But more than that, what you brought to our board, always, always, always a positive attitude and a way to solve problems, and we are going to really miss that. Best.
She's still in shock. And Tammy, did you have a few words?
I do, yes. So I had the pleasure of working with Bill for many, many years in my career here. We worked together through Radnor Youth Basketball and the league officer days and the refereeing days and the coaching days. So he spent a lot of years contributing to that great program as well. I know that was a while ago, so that one could be forgotten. And then, of course, through the years of Radnor Wayne Little League, getting so much accomplished. Which is a fitting meeting for tonight, given that Radnor Wayne Little League is here to see you and see you off of the Parks Board. But there were so many great accomplishments that you had there as well at Enke Park with the concession stand and just so many great objectives that were fulfilled. So you certainly have spent your time in meeting a community mission and trying to, make sure there's lots of great resources and things available for our community. And then, of course, serving here for the years that you did, always positive. Always have a great attitude, but a can-do and a get-done attitude. And the Parks Board plate has been full for the last several years, so I appreciate the time that you've put in. Definitely going to miss you and miss your positive, great positive attitude. And then, of course, Santa's. I'm glad you mentioned it, Claire, because I had the ability to serve with you during our Santa's delivery this past weekend. And actually, I just want to play a clip really quick for everybody, just to kind of denote Bill and his, his energy.
I didn't know any of this was coming.
So Ian, I think this is turned up now. I'm just going to hit play. We tried to, this was a voicemail that was left to us by a recipient along the Santa's delivery route. It's not on the screens. It's just going to be audio.
And yesterday, whoever the Santa was came to our house was amazing. We loved him. He was so nice. It was a wonderful programming that you guys were able to put on. We love it every year. It's one of my absolute very favorite things about living in this town. And I know that you have a really huge, huge part in that. So thank you so, so much. The Santa who came to our house at Strathmore Drive was wonderful. He was so great. We all loved him. Everybody's raving about how great he was. Thank you again so much for this amazing opportunity. We loved the Santa drop. It was so much fun. Thanks again for all your hard work. Bye.
So I thought that was a great note to end on because that's another event we can't do without great community members like you. So thank you so much. You will be sorely missed.
And we don't want you to leave tonight empty-handed, so we have a plaque for you. And it. Would you like And it says, in recognition of your 4 years of leadership and dedication to the Parks and Recreation Board, proudly serving the residents of Radnor Township, 2018 to 2022, presented to William Quinn.
Oh, you're so sweet.
You may, it's not too late to change your mind.
It's not.
Thanks again, Bill. All right, then. Everybody get a hold of yourself. Commissioner Farhi, did you have anything you wanted to say to Bill? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to exclude you.
Oh, no. I just have one thing to say, and I asked Santa Claus. I was on Santa's delivery on Sunday, and I asked Santa Claus, I'm like, don't leave, or not. I don't want Bill Quinn to leave, and I guess that message didn't get
Didn't take.
yeah, but no, seriously, Bill, thank you for serving. I remember when you came into the executive session, gosh, in that room 5 years ago. It's been great having you on. Thank you so much for everything that you do. And whatever you decide to do, the best of luck. And there will always be a home for you here or somewhere in Radnor. So thank you so much. And we really, really appreciate it. And you served great, and yeah, you did a great job. And thanks again.
Okay. All right, no tears. Okay, let's move on to reports. Take it away, Tammy.
Sure, thank you. I guess I'm going to just report some of the statistics about Santa's delivery, just because that was such a big event that just happened. I'll spare you details from too much going on. I know we want to get to the presentation from Radnor Wayne Little League. So in 2013, when this event started, we had 169 households, 382 gifts. And this year in 2022, 10 years later, major milestone this year for the event, we had 731 households and 1,684 gifts. The township's divided into 5 zones, 5 motorcades that consists of several folks that come along with us. So first of all, I just want to start off by thanking the commissioners who join in and support this event. Commissioner Farhi, I know you have rode along with us for many years, and you rode along over there on Zone 4 this year. And then participating, of course, with your kids in the program, which is really amazing to have that support. Former Commissioner Lisa Borowski has joined, and our current elected state representative for the 168th District. She joined us for the last several years on Zone 5 and has come along, and worked with us. Jake Abel has participated for several years with his 4 children. I know when we were over on Petrie Avenue, President Mulroney of the Board of Commissioners came out and joined us, so it just really has a lot of support, a lot of community engagement, and we sincerely appreciate all of that. And of course, then it goes from there. The police department and everything they put into it, they spend the whole week before putting all the routes together, making sure all the stops and starts are orchestrated properly for each motorcade. So 5 of our officers and detectives work on that. Detective Jamie Metzler serves as one of our Santas, and all the department members there just that are on motorcycles that day, are in the patrol cars that day, play such an integral role, and as you know, everyone loves to see them out on the route. The kids just absolutely love the fire vehicles and the emergency vehicles. That's what brings it together, and of course, the police department. This year, we had Marion Fire Company of Ardmore join in with us, Radnor Fire Company, Bryn Mawr Fire Company, Broomall, and of course, Newtown Square, who also brought along a Santa for us, which was awesome. We had 2 members of our Radnor Citizens Police Organization join in as Santas this year, which was awesome. And it's just a great day. It's a perfect example of a lot of staff and a lot of volunteers and community members working together in unison. It's a lot of weeks of leading up to the event and planning and orchestrating, and we have, with our staff, we have a really good system in place. So I also want to thank my staff for the time that they put in. Tracy, especially, with all of her time and her efforts in leading a lot of our events, Natalie, and of course Heather. So it's a whole lot of fun. It's a day we look forward to, and as we were talking earlier, is a day that just goes by way too quickly. So I did want to report on that. I also wanted to report on the shade tree. They had a tree planting, which some of you may have taken part in. On November 19th, 150 trees were planted throughout the township in various parks and locations. We have a pickleball tournament tomorrow that's actually sold out. It's over at Radnor Activity Center. It's going to be going on in the gym. There is a holiday celebration happening at the Willows Mansion, delivered by the Willows Park Preserve this Saturday. Something that we definitely want folks to join in and see. And if you go to the website, get all the information. I believe it's from 11 to 4 p.m. So some great events going on there. Registration for the Sweetheart Dance in February sold out on December 1st within a few hours. So we're looking to see how we can move people off the wait list and get them into that great event that'll be coming up on February 10th. So I said I would keep my report short, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Thank you for all the support. We had a great year and a lot of good stuff, and we'll get into some other updates later on.
Oops, thanks. Okay, that brings us to new business in Anki Park Ball Field B lighting proposal presentation. I'm sorry, Sean, did you want to say something?
Yeah, can I give a report or no?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, by all means.
So, just real quick, because I do have to step out. See, it's been a great year, and the reason why it's been a great year is really because of this person right here to my right. So, really, no, I want to say that I mean that. Tammy thanked the fire and the police and our public works and all the volunteers, as well as her staff. But I really want to thank her for her leadership. Santa's Delivery is just one of the greatest events that the township has. Seeing the smile on the faces of a lot of these kids, the fire trucks, and it wouldn't happen without her. It is a long, difficult task with fire companies. Some of them, they may not be able to do it one year or the other. For instance, we had Ardmore as opposed to Berwyn. So really, it's an issue of leadership, and thank you, Tammy. So I do appreciate that. Two more things before you get into the report, and one of them is actually about the report. The other issue from the Board of Commissioners, and Tammy may or may not, I don't know if it's on the agenda, is we are taking the two school board members. There will be a vote, I guess, at the next Board of Commissioners meeting. Am I correct, Tammy? Okay.
Yes, and it was introduced at the last meeting as well.
That was introduced. So I'm hoping that passes. You guys work very hard. It's not a fault of them, but you're here, and it's an issue of this is somewhere where I feel that you guys want to be, and I am happy that that's the case. They were there based on a situation years ago with land agreements, and that's no longer. So I don't want to say I'm happy to have them off the board. We'll come, and Tammy and the manager, we can reach out to the superintendent as needed, but I think that is really the best case scenario at this point, because it obviously hurts, Mary, as you know, with quorums and issues like that. Unfortunately, I do have to leave at 7. I just want to know, everyone to know that I did, or Matt Shaholsky and I touched base. Matt gave me pretty much the whole summary of the lights and everything. From everything that he said, I will watch the tape tomorrow. I am okay with it. Matt and my big issue, I guess some of you know that sometimes I'm not too thrilled about light pollution and whatnot. I'll just say briefly, in another instance, I was worried about many cars backing up a lot of the neighborhood. I don't see we're going to have 10,000 cars trying to fill a stadium up. So I don't have a problem with any of it. The lights will go off when they, at a reasonable time. It shouldn't create that much light pollution. During some of the, and I'm not trying to steal any of your thunder, during times where it's foggy and humid like this, you do get that glow, but it's a little harder to play baseball during that time. Matt told me about that. So I think I'm going to be able to support this when this comes, and hopefully this comes in front of the board. So I do want to thank Little League for that, getting that done. You know, when you sign Bryce Harper, go to a World Series, and I think there's a recent shortstop signing too. And you know, when Justin Verlander's going to the Mets, there's a lot of kids that really want to start playing the game. So thank you to Little League, thank you, Matt, and Mr. McWilliams. I see you here, and everybody else. So thank you very much, and thanks again. And Bill.
Okay, thank you. Not missing any other reports, am I? Okay, now we can get to new business and Anki Park.
Thank you. I am Tom McWilliams. I am the president of Radnor Wayne Little League. Before we get started tonight, first I want to thank Sean as he walks out the door for what you just mentioned about our prior discussions with him. I also want to thank Bill for your service to the township. On behalf of RWLL, I want to thank you for your service with us, and then everything you've done for us after you left us. We've missed you since you left us, but you've done great things all the way throughout, and we appreciate that. So our light proposal, I'm assuming if I just click that, there we go, look at that. So what we're going to walk through tonight, just some introductions of the folks involved in the project, an overview of why we feel this is a great thing for the community, and we have tried our best to do as much legwork as we can. So now we're here hoping for more comments, more guidance, because we think this could be a terrific thing. And then finally, some of the details of the proposal. So the folks involved, I'm the president, as I mentioned. Matt Cholsky is our commissioner emeritus for baseball. Mark Verbos, our current commissioner. Paul Schuster is our treasurer. And Brian Ertl is a member of this committee, which the board formed some time ago to start looking into the possibility of putting lights on one of our fields in the township to give us more playable time. It took us a long while to get here. I know I've given many past updates where sort of on the somewhat distant horizon, we had hoped to get lights on one of our fields. We're here at this time because we felt it was very important from a community standpoint that the technology be there, that we find the right location, that we get agreement amongst our board members so that we could do this in cooperation with the community. We didn't want this to turn into something that we were trying to push through that wouldn't be not necessarily a good thing for everybody, that would be a bad thing for some people. We didn't want that. We wanted it to either be neutral or very helpful to everyone, especially our community's kids. So one of the members of our board, Brian Ertl, we're going to hear from Brian a little bit later. He has expertise in electrical and lighting industry. Matt Cholsky is going to come up and step you through some of the details. He's been intimately involved in that. These are just 5 folks. I do want to thank, I think Dave Falcone's here tonight, but we've had an army of literally dozens of people in Radnor Wayne Little League who volunteered their time to help us with various expertise in trying to tee this up. All the folks involved, including the gentleman that you see up on the screen right now, are parents of youth athletes in Radnor. We're trying to provide great experiences for our kids, and that's really the only reason that we're here tonight. We're trying to, we think we have a cool idea that will be really helpful and important for our children, so we wanted to come and talk with you about that tonight. So Radnor Township, there are signs all over, so that's where we got the best of the main line, but we believe that. We are all residents of Radnor Township. Our kids play various sports in Radnor Township. We really do believe we are the best of the main line. We also believe that part of that is providing best-in-class facilities for our kids. Our parks should be the best of the best. They should have the best of the best. We should keep them clean. We should maintain them well. We should use them and make sure we're giving kids everything that we can possibly give them. We are surprised, just by way of quick background, we are one member of a 13-league member Little League district. Over half the teams in our Little League district have at least one, some multiple lighted fields. We do not have any access to any fields with lights. We're the only youth sports organization in Radnor that doesn't have any access to any field anywhere with lights. But we do understand, as I mentioned earlier, that while this is a great thing for our kids, and the other youth sports organizations have lights and we don't, but we are not here asking tonight, we should get them because everyone else should get them. We want to do this in cooperation and concert with our neighbors at the parks, with the whole community, and with the township. So, as I say, we're not just here because we're ready to say, boy, we deserve this too because everybody else has it. We have a number of important reasons why we think it'd be a terrific thing. So, a little bit about RWLL. We just finished our 70th year. We're very proud of that. I don't know, our board members and certainly the folks here may be well familiar with the fact that travel sports, Babe Ruth Little League in particular, these are not Little League programs, but they're kind of taking over, and they're not oriented for all to play. They are really directed to the best of the best kids, get the best treatment, and they play on the best fields. That's not what Little League is about. That's not what Radnor Wayne Little League is about. Little League International, of which we are a member, is the largest and the oldest youth sports organization in the United States. We're very proud to be a part of it. We've had a lot of proposals to leave it and go the route of this where it's not for everybody, it's just for the best of the best. We're not interested in that. We want everybody to have a wonderful experience. Why do we want everybody to have a wonderful experience? Studies by the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, the American Psychological Association, the Mayo Clinic, all say the same thing. Youth sports is one of the, if not the most helpful way for kids to not only improve their physical well-being, but for also them to learn to socialize, understand the value of teamwork, and perhaps most importantly, improves their self-esteem and prevents depression. To that end, a lot of this was germinating before the pandemic, but RWLL was the first sports organization to play in the pandemic. We played in the summer, at the end of the summer of 2020, as soon as we consulted medical experts, and we were told we could safely do it if we did these 18 things. I'll be darned, we went and did those 18 things because we felt it was important because of what we offer for the kids, especially when they had been locked away basically apart from each other for 6 months. And the fact that part of what we provide is this self-esteem and fighting depression aspect. So we got out there in the field and we played. And lo and behold, we had a huge turnout. Why? No one else was doing anything. The kids had nowhere else to go and nothing else to do. So we grew by leaps and bounds. We were thrilled. We were happy that all those kids were there and they were getting that great experience. That's the upside. Downside is we didn't have enough places to put them. We needed more field space. So Tammy and her team are amazing. They bend over backwards to help us. And every year since that pandemic year, we've needed more and more help and more space. And every time we're given space, we fill it up. We're very proud this year for the first time in a long time. For those who don't know, Little League season is usually a spring. And then sometimes you have a fall, but you don't always have a lot of interest in the fall. For the first time this year, we had an entire softball league. We had, in sum total, 8 teams played softball in Radnor Wayne Little League. We haven't had that in a long time in the fall. Again, the problem became it gets dark early. We didn't have any place to put them all. So we wound up having our older girls play a whole extra ton of away games because we needed them to have a field to play on and we wanted to get them more games, but we had no space for them here. To that end, our registrations in the spring and the fall continue to grow year over year, and Sean mentioned this, and we all smiled. We expect this trend to be significantly accelerated by the Phillies' recent success and their signing of all these awesome free agents. Bill was the president some time ago. I know when the Phillies won the last time, there was very significant growth in our registration. So we are both thrilled and scared to death. We're already struggling to find places to have kids play. The installation of lights on Enki B, just based on sunset times, we're going to say probably 14 or 15 hours. I guess that's the next slide. Sorry about that. Probably 14 or 15 hours of extra usability in the spring, and probably 25 hours in the fall, because it gets dark so much earlier, is what we would gain. Before I turn this over to Matt, he's going to get up, as I said, and give you the details, but I'm going to steal a tiny bit of his thunder, because I think several of the notes that Matt's going to go through are vitally important to our understanding of the project. As I said, we waited to come here until we felt like we were ready with something that wasn't going to hurt anybody, but was going to help kids. Matt, to his credit, has done mad crazy amounts of fundraising. It is our intention to pay for this completely by ourselves with no taxpayer money, and that includes the ongoing cost of the utilities at Enki Park. So we would cover that. We understand there's a lot of taxpayers that don't have kids who play in Radnor Wayne Little League, and we felt that it wasn't fair to ask them to pay, so Radnor Wayne Little League is going to pay for this. We hope this will be a significant asset for the township. We've been discussing with the township how we would go about this, the different ordinances that we have to honor. And it goes without saying, the township would get priority use of these lights. If they want to hold township functions, we would be thrilled to have them do that, night at the ballpark, et cetera. It would be freely available for their use and consequently, through the township's use, members of our community. And finally, I just wanted to mention, because it's the question I get most often, I don't know the level of familiarity. I know this is the Parks Board. I assume there's a little understanding of Enki A versus Enki B. Bill will make a face at me because he well knows our main field is Enki A. It's a beautiful field, and we appreciate everything that the township has done to make it so. It's close to Ivan Avenue, and it's close to houses across the street. We would love to have lights on Enki A. We're not here tonight to ask for that. We don't want to impose on our neighbors. We feel like Enki B was the right spot to do it. It's surrounded by trees, the tree line of which is well above the lights on 3 sides, and the third side, it's partly got Capelli driving range, the bottom of the hill there. So there's nothing on 3 sides, and I believe it's 2, but Brian may correct me when he gets up and speaks. I believe the 2 light poles that would actually face Ivan Avenue will be at an oblique angle. We won't have any light spillage that reaches anywhere near those houses because they're about 500 feet away, but we still are trying to do everything we can just to make sure this is not an imposition on anybody. So, having said all of that as fast as I can talk, and I'm just about out of voice, I'm going to turn it over to Matt. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. So as Tom said, he's not going to steal my thunder. He did. A lot of the benefits that Tom went over are on the slides here. So my name's Matt Chicholsky. I've been the commissioner here for Radnor Wayne Little League for a better part of 5 years. I'm the emeritus going out. I don't have a child in the program any longer, but I want to see a project through that we started years ago, and I want to thank Tammy, everybody in the township helping us get to this point, and others that came before us in making our township and our facilities top-notch. For those who've been around a while, Tammy, I heard you say thanking Bill for the concession stand, right? That's a joy to have that. We're up to snuff with a lot of the things and amenities that we do offer our fields. The final thing that we're asking for, and the blessing of the Park and Recs Committee, are the lights, right? That's why we're here. Tom talked a little bit about the quality of life and the recreational benefits that it provide our residents. A few short years ago when this pandemic started, we didn't have anything to do, as Tom mentioned. We got these kids out. Tom talked a little bit about the growth that we've seen in our program. One thing, Tom, I don't think you mentioned it, and Bill, I think when you were around, we saw an explosion when the Phillies made the World Series back a few short years back, right? Our numbers went up, Tom, 40-some%, right? That just parallels itself to the lack of time that we have on the fields and the reason we're here in front of you today. We need more slots, more time, more field space for those fields. Tom talked about the quality of life and the recreational benefits. We have other programs, 13 of them, that come to our facility. We get a wow but. And that but is the lights. You know, we want to have the ability to host these other townships. So the cages that we put in a few years ago, the concession stand, the experience that outside residents come in and see what we have done, accolades. Thank you for the township for getting us to that point. The lights are icing on the cake, and again, that's our ask. And our ability to host those events. We travel. I know every single one of us here have done that, going out to the likes of Lower Perkiomen and out to Upper Providence because we had to. We were slotted in the evening, and we were the township without the lights, right? The ability to deliver the same competitive experience I talked about a minute ago with Lower Perk and Upper Providence and others in the township, that just helps us put that icing on the cake. For the residents and the township itself, Tom talked a little bit about the experience, things that we can do to enhance that with with the fields, the lights in itself, and the Wiffle Ball Classic. How cool would it be to have a night at the ballpark and really have a night at the ballpark? You know, have the kids experience that, and for the other benefits that the lights would offer, giving the township first right of refusal, obviously, on any night they would want it. We're here for 3 steps. We want to collaborate. We're asking you to be receptive. We want your feedback. We've done 2 years of work. We had a list that Tammy and the township provided us, and we were not ready. Tammy asked us to make sure we were ready in checking all those boxes. Those boxes are checked. That's the reason why we're here, right? The collaborative effort. You know, our proposal, we believe, meets every single ordinance that we were told. The height, the timing, the spread of the lights, the stormwater management, the potential floodplain issues, the disturbance of the ground. We believe we have that all handled. But I'm not an engineer, I'm not a professional, but we're here asking for your blessing to move this project on so we can get to the Board of Commissioners and get this all done. We've adequately addressed the primary concerns from the residents. I know a note went out a few weeks ago with our plan to all the current residents. We've had tremendous conversations with the surrounding community, and we believe we're at a spot right now where, outside of maybe 1 or 2, we have hopefully the voice that we need to move this forward. So, we were asking you to be receptive. We're here today to listen to your feedback, work to address maybe some of the things that we haven't thought about that you're aware of, and we'll adjust our plan and hopefully get this done accordingly in a timely fashion, and continue to hear any other concerns and ideas that you all have, including the residents. The funding, Tom already talked about that. We've raised the money. The money's in the bank. We've had generous donations from many of our constituents that came up through our program and who have left our program. And any shortfalls, we have verbal commitments to make sure we can absolutely 100% fund this when we're ready and have your approval and the Board of Commissioner approval. I'm going to introduce Brian and Andrew from Musco Lighting here. They'll talk a little bit about the actual lights itself, the how, the light spread, and anything that you might have questions on. And again, just offering the township the opportunity to enhance what we do for our residents at no cost to you. So that concludes my portion. I'm not sure if any of my colleagues.
Matt, can you quantify? I know we did it earlier. I think it was in one of Tom's slides, but I don't know if we mentioned it. Quantify the time that we estimate we gain.
Yeah. So the question was the time that we gain. Early spring, as you know, we run out of light. We try to have our program run till 7:30, 8 o'clock. We run out of light at like 6:30 as spring gets into the summer season. Obviously, we gain light. We're anywhere from 14 to 25 hours, which, on a 2-hour time slot every night, that's a minimum of 2 slots for, an evening, which helps us with our expanding roster sizes, the folks that are coming in, hopefully the World Series. We have more kids coming into our program. So it's a definite benefit. We split the fields up every night in the summer. 2 teams are on one field, 2 teams are on another. Then it becomes a little bit of a safety issue. We got kids throwing balls around, bats. this just helps us expand that opening of time slots and gives us the ability to have families participate in a safe environment. So thank you, Mark. Anything else, guys? We good? I'm now going to turn it over to Brian Ertl. Brian will give you a kind of a rundown of what we're doing and introduce Andrew.
Thanks, Matt. Hello, everybody. As Matt said, my name is Brian Ertl. I had a child that just aged out of the program. But before I start, thank you, Tammy, for all your help and the board. I have to say, Bill, congratulations. I watched Bill's kids grow up across the street from me, and he watched my kids grow up. So pretty cool to see you, all the nice words about you tonight. So congrats, Bill. So we talked about the why, and this is the how. We started this a couple years ago, talking about lights, and we went through a few different manufacturers. I work in the electrical industry. Our company represents lighting lines, and we actually got down a path to talk about lights for the field from one of our manufacturers. But ultimately, as Tom said, Radnor is best of the main line, and some of the options we didn't feel were best in class. So Musco is best in class in sports lighting. They have done countless fields, indoor, outdoor, in the area, around the country. So with me tonight is Andrew O'Connell from Musco. He is local. He lives in Manayunk, close by. He has provided the level of support so far that we've been working with him that's second to none, and every time I reach out, he's there. He's with us tonight on a Thursday night helping us out. So it makes us feel very comfortable to be going with Musco. They're best in class, just like Radnor's best of the main line. So just real quick, I have a few slides here. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of the numbers, but just point out the important things here. So this slide, as you'll see my cursor go, A1 and A2 represent the poles. A1, A2, B1, B2 are the poles. So basically, there's 4 poles around Enki B. 2 are along each base path. 1 first base side, 1 third base side, near the dugout on the first base side, near the dugout on the third base side. 1 down the right field line directly, 1 down the left field line directly. So 4 poles, and each pole has, I believe, 4 fixtures? 4 fixtures on each pole. So as Tom alluded to earlier, there are the 2 poles that are in the outfield probably are the ones that are of the most concern for people, the surrounding neighbors. They're angled in a way that doesn't shine directly at the houses across or at anything, just tree line on the one side. So just numbers here. The poles are 60 feet high, which I think the code provision was 85 feet, so well within that. There are, just to give you an example of one pole, just the technology, we're looking at LED lights, jumping a little bit, but Sean Farr, he mentioned earlier about glare in fog and rain. So there was an instance in Bryn Mawr at the Villanova Stadium where they worked with HID lights that shined out, and when it was foggy, you got that little glare. These are LED lights that directly shine down, and it's a beam of light down. It's not going to shine up or create any sort of haze in the air. So that's nothing that we're concerned about. So just one particular light here will have three fixtures shining down at the field, and then one they call it a ball tracker. It's 50 feet up. About 50 feet up. That when the ball gets hit, it follows the ball in the air. So just the technology. At night, if you hit a high pop really, really high and it goes above the lights, the kid's going to lose it, but this has technology to follow the ball. So it's cutting-edge technology for sure. So again, I mentioned LED lights. There's 3 circuits here, and I'll get to these in the next slide, but ball field B is Enki B. The transitional area, and I'll get to this, is the area next to B as you exit the field. There's a walking bridge that goes to the parking lot. And at night, obviously, for safety reasons, we'll need to have the area where you walk to the bridge illuminated just a little bit. And as you get closer to the parking lot, the light gets lower and lower, but it will provide light for safety walking over the bridge. And then there's lighting for the batting cage, which I'll get to. So this slide, it's basically just a lot of engineer numbers, and you really don't need to concern yourself with much of it other than the fact that they're LEDs, and the 75 CRI is just a color rendering. It's a cleaner light. It's not a glary light. It's a cleaner light, and just shows the quantity of fixtures on each. This has calculations of illumination. Again, we're talking about LEDs. We're not talking about old fields where you see the lights shining out at fans and around neighbors. It's canopy type lights with visors. Again, I should have mentioned that earlier, Andrew. They have visors on the edge of each lamp that directs the light. If it didn't have the visors, it would direct the light out. This has visors that direct it down, so it's literally a beam of light on the field from each luminaire. This is important to note. Musco has, for infield, for Little League fields, has a standard of, these numbers don't mean much to you, but it's foot candles on the ground. It's the brightness of light on the ground. So the higher the number, the brighter the light. So if you'll notice in the infield here, there's higher numbers. It's standard to have brighter lights in the infield. As you go to the outfield, it gets lower and lower. So this just shows those light levels on the field. And it actually points out a little bit where the poles, that's a good depiction of where the poles will be. A1, A2, B1, B2, down the lines. This same type of information, but for the transitional area, we're referring to the transitional area. That's the area where we walk off the field to the walking bridge to the parking lot. It gets lower and lower as it gets to that tree line, and we'll get to further out on the next slides. So this is the batting cage also. So we're going to have two more shorter poles over the batting cage, P1, P2. Those are 40 feet in height, smaller than the field poles. And again, it shows the foot candles in the batting cage. You know, this is, if we have teams coming to us, just like other teams have it, the 7 or 8 different fields that have lights, they also have their batting cages lit. So we figured if we're going to do it, we're going to do it at the same time and keep the lower the poles are there, the less the light will shine onto the neighbors. All right, this is really just a review of the other slides with the poles. I'm not going to bore you. The other guys got the more exciting stuff. This is just technical stuff. So this is an important slide. This is the one that Tammy, we talked to you about. So this is the same level of light that expands outside of the field. Again, really hard to see those numbers. We'll provide you with this report. But the code provision, I believe, from Kevin Kachansky was 0.2 foot candles outside of the property. It couldn't be any more than 0.2 foot candles. And if you could actually see the numbers there, it shows 0.0 as soon as you hit tree line, basically. And as you get closer to Enki A, basically in the outfield, it starts to be 0.0. So there's absolutely zero light affecting any surrounding area. There's a little bit of light that goes to the snack shack, and Andrew and I were talking about that. We felt that it was important because while there is a light at the snack shack, the walk from field to snack shack has to be a little bit lit up just for safety reasons. So there's a tiny bit of light there. So this probably is the most powerful slide here. This is important for everybody involved and neighbors involved. And Andrew and I discussed this, and thanks for providing the slide because it shows that there's it doesn't affect the surrounding apartment. So obviously any questions about that? Yeah.
By the time it reaches the parking lot of the Township building.
Parking lot.
Zero.
Yep,
Right?
0.0.
That's a good line kind of across.
Yep.
To give you a reference of how far it goes out.
Yeah.
This is also a worst-case scenario. We don't take into account elevation
That's an important point, if you could just state that, so, because when he spoke, it didn't go into the
Oh, this
recording.
sorry. So this is, as Andrew said, this is worst-case scenario. So as you get closer to the parking lot, it's actually, they didn't take into account the tree line. The tree line is, I don't know the height of the tree line, but it would block virtually anything that comes even close to the parking lot. So, again, worst-case scenario.
The other comment, too, that is worth mentioning is foliage. You know, in the spring, leaves come on the trees, right? You know, when the trees, the leaves leave the trees, it's in November. You know, we'll play only when the leaves are up. So that's an important fact that I want to make sure you guys here in the Park and Rec, and as well as anybody listening, you know, playing during the foliage. It's not going to be bare and casting out. So,
Thank you, Matt. So anybody else, any questions on that? Good? And again, this is somewhat of a duplicated slide, but it gives you a good picture of where every pole is going to be mounted. There was a question of disturbance of, I think it was 500 square feet of disturbance for the poles, and we're not even close. It's a non-issue. Andrew and I met with the contractor, who is a contractor that Musco uses. They're I guess one of the contractors you use a lot. They came out and we met at the field, and he explained that every night when they dig, they'll dig and then fill back in and seed, so there'll never be an open area while they're doing the construction. I think that's it on the details there. I'll turn it over to Tom.
Thank you, Brian. That was, and I actually am an engineer in a prior life, so I found that fascinating. So I was distressed that you said it was boring. I was like, this is really cool. So we just wanted to close by saying, first of all, thank you again to Tammy, to Steve, to Kevin, to the Township. We asked a lot of questions, and then Musco had more questions, so we asked those. The Township has given us a lot of instruction and guidance how to make sure we were well within the ordinances, what has been done at other installations at Radnor Memorial or at Villanova, and how we should be addressing certain things. To that end, I mentioned earlier that this would be on the tab of Radnor Wayne Little League. We're discussing that with the Township. We'll of course have a memorandum of understanding with the Township. One thing that I should mention in that regard, we will also be responsible for maintenance for 25 years.
No, sorry, that's important. Sorry, that's one thing I forgot. Sorry, Tom. One of the big reasons why we're going with Musco is the 25-year warranty. It's no one else was even close, and that's how much they believe in their product. So the fact that we have a local rep that we can reach out to and 25 years warranty was the deal. There's also a timing issue. Thanks, Matt. The name of that system is Control Link. So important when the lights go off at night. They'll be set by what they call Control Link to go off at whatever time we determine they're going to go off. Whether it's 10, 10:30, whatever the time is, it's not going to be Matt going in there, flipping a switch, getting them out of bed at 10:30. It's going to be set and goes off, hard shut off.
And the lights won't be on if we're not playing.
Right, the lights, just so everyone hears that, who's listening in, the lights will only be on when there's games happening. So if we don't have game nights, the lights will not be on. And I also wanted to mention, to Brian's point about the control, the hard controls on the timing, as well as software access control. We're discussing with the Township that the Township would basically have override control as well of the lights. So we'd sort of have a double check that we'd have these hard stops in. Radnor Wayne Little League would also have control over it if the hard stops for whatever reason didn't work, and the Township would have yet another override just to make sure we're honoring our commitment to do this in the right way. So having said all of that, We're happy to answer any questions that we can. We did as much homework as we could until we got here, and now we don't know what we don't know. So,
Okay, yeah. We lose Bill? Oh, yeah, we did. Yeah, I have a couple questions, if nobody minds me going first. What is the latest time or hour, or time of day that the lights would ever be on? So what's the latest they would ever shut off after a game?
I believe it's 10 p.m. by ordinance. 10:30?
It's 10:30 by the ordinance.
10:30 by the ordinance.
10 o'clock was what we just had discussed.
Okay.
That was just consistent maybe with what some other little leagues do
Right.
in the area that were referenced.
Yeah, so I guess the answer to that is we had been talking about 10 o'clock. The ordinance says 10:30, but if, for the convenience of the neighbors in the township, we need to turn them off at 10 o'clock, we would do that.
How many residences are, I don't know how to define this, affected or potentially impacted by, I don't even know what I mean by that, but maybe you can figure out what I mean by that.
So, excuse me. So my understanding, and Brian and Andrew can correct me if I'm wrong. I think I got it. It's coming back. Is we would be
Need water.
at zero lighting, hundreds of feet, at least 100 feet from any residence anywhere. But the residences that we were particularly concerned with when Andrew was kind enough to provide us with that map of the foot candles were the two houses across the street from Enki A directly on the other side of
on
Ivan,
Yeah, okay.
And then the apartment building next to the township building. So those were the two that we sort of did our design for considerations to make sure we were getting no light spillage whatsoever anywhere near them. So as I say, we would be over 100 feet. It's probably closer to 200 feet. We'd be at zero light from any residence.
You've discussed a lot and met with, area residents, and I think I heard you say that there might have been one or two residents who might still have some concerns or objections. What are those objections or concerns other than just it's going to be light? Is that it, basically?
So one concern was with light spillage and that it might have an effect on, property value or, imposition on nearby properties. So as I say, we certainly understand that concern, and we try to anticipate that we didn't want anybody having any light in their backyard. We were all sort of, as we were going through this process, joking in a way that if the skate park lights are of concern to you, we will be 100 times less than that. So they are much brighter than anything we are even considering doing. The other concern that we have with any project, I think Brian mentioned it, is stormwater management, wildlife concerns. Again, we appreciate those. The stormwater management, we are, I believe one of the estimates was the ordinance is no more than 50 square feet of disturbance. I think we're closer to 500 square feet, and we're closer to 50. So we're nowhere near there. The wildlife concerns, again, we understand that. We have not seen any credible study that the lights would have any effect on wildlife. I think the one thing we noted, and it's sort of more allegorical when you investigate it, is birds, and does it affect migratory patterns. Brian referenced by way of Andrew's report to us that is much more of a concern if the lights were facing out or even up, and if birds are navigating by the stars, and I'm sorry that I'm saying if a lot, but again, we can't read birds' minds, but if they are navigating by the stars, and if they deem these to be stars beneath them, looking up at them, would it confuse them? These lights are facing down, so it shouldn't be an issue, but we also could not find any circumstances where that occurred, including here, as I said, we have two significant light installations in relatively recent time frame in the township, and we've heard no concerns expressed whatsoever about wildlife or bird issues or anything of that sort. Yes, I mentioned earlier that the taxpayers foot the bill is a big concern for folks, and we get that. If you don't have a child playing, you probably don't want to fund our lights. But we sort of, from the get-go, we understood that concern and designed this whole thing that if we couldn't pay for it, we're not going to come here and ask to do it.
Okay, the next question involves math. How many days each year will the lights be in use for whatever amount of hours during that day? How many total days would the lights be on?
So we'd have
That's like
April, May, and June.
May, June, July, beginning of July.
Right.
And
So
then
4.5.
August.
The lights would be on at night on every one of those days?
No.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
No.
How many exact days? I know that it's going to be maybe 15 hours in the spring, did I hear somebody say?
Yes, per
And
week.
25 hours in the fall, at least, I'm assuming, because that's how much playing time will be gained. I'm assuming that's how long the lights will be on. Maybe they'll be on a little bit earlier and a little bit later. Not too worried about that. But translate that into how many actual calendar days, if you counted up all the days those lights are going to be on.
So I think the answer to that question, and I apologize, I don't know that we have a precise calculation. We designed for thinking when we estimated how many hours a week we would gain, probably 5 nights a week for what sounds like approximately 4 to 5 months out of the year. So 5 nights a week, so I don't know what that, so if we
So
have,
5 nights a week, 4 weeks
give
per
or take,
month.
20.
I'm trying to figure out how that fits into 15 total hours and 25 total hours
That would be per week.
per week.
So that's how much if we had the
Okay,
lights
I'm missing
on
the per
5
week part there.
days and we gained 3 hours a day.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to get, I'm trying to get a sense of if I were living there and felt I were impacted, how many days of my life am I going to have to tolerate this
Right.
situation? That's what I'm trying to get a sense of. Pardon me?
Yeah, Matt was just saying, we design more for hours than days, like hours
No,
per
I
week that we would
understand
gain.
that, but I'm just trying to think like, it's only going to be,
I think that,
May 1st, May 5th, June
120?
2nd.
The most would be 2 hours a day for, at tops, 120 days out of the year.
right,
Would be kind of
Okay,
the maximum.
very high.
okay.
And part of that too, we're agreeable to if we have these on 1 night a week for 2 months, it's a huge help to us because that's 2 hours a week for 2 months that we can get extra kids out there playing. It gives us, in
That's
essence,
8 days.
right,
That's
exactly.
what I'm getting at. is how
Additional
many-
game days, yes.
How many days would someone mark on their calendar that those lights are on today? That's what I'm trying to get at. I'm trying to determine whether that's a pretty small number of days to have to tolerate, and at most, some sort of inconvenience.
Sounds like 100 to 120, I think, is what we're.
You would get in 2 extra games per evening. Is the goal to get in 2 games per evening under the lights?
2 practices.
2 practices, okay.
2 practices, 1.
How you doing? I'm Dave Falcone with Saul Ewing here, and represent other school districts actually that have just recently put in lights. So these are questions we get from other districts and boards and so forth. And so the impact and what I think the rep from Musco and Brian would get at. So kind of the primary goal when we put lights on fields is obviously, one, to meet the need of the child that's kind of being served by that function. But then number 2 almost always is how can we mitigate impact on neighbors? And so what kind of drove this discussion with the Little League was obviously you have to kind of avoid Field A. There's kind of close proximity to homes. There's really no space or foliage to limit that impact. And so kind of everything is driven by these lights off of kind of now the technology. Lights that people put in even just a handful of years ago were so far inferior to the lights that they installed today. You'll hear from the Musco rep and even from Brian, you get very little foot candle spill from these lights. If you were sitting at a field and turned around and looked, which I was about 3 weeks ago up in Horsham at a soccer field with Musco lights, I turned around and looked behind me just because I was representing another district and was like, what is the actual spill? I talk about this all the time, and it's black. So there's no spill because of the way these lights are directed. But on top of that, these lights will have shields on the back, which will control spill. So while you may be feeling the effect of the light on the field, they're designed in such a way and they're structured in such a way with these shields that there'll be no spill behind them, which is really where the impact comes. Now, it's impossible to say how many nights of the week are we going to use these fields and what's it going to feel like for a neighbor. It's going to feel probably very much like staring at a township parking lot, but with better lights. There's going to be light. You're going to recognize the light, but it's not going to be on you. So it would be consistent with sitting in a pitch black room that is pitch black and staring out your window, and you may see a light down the street, but your room is still pitch black. So that's where the technology has to go now, especially with these types of fields and the way that they kind of are driven for neighbor impact. So when we talk about number of days that there's use, I think you're looking at a really kind of conservative estimate from the Little League, because they don't want to stand here and tell you, we're not going to use them here. They're going to tell you this is probably the most possible use you're going to get from these lights. But the reality is, with a hard shutoff at 10 o'clock, games will end in the summertime when you have natural light till almost 9 or 9:15. You're not going to start another game. So there's no lights then. But the reality is there could be lights maybe on your batting cages or not. So those summer months, which is really the primary time for Little League, the lights probably won't be on because you're not going to start a game at 9:15. But early in the fall when you can still play, or kind of in the springtime when you're ramping up, the lights will be on, and it's probably going to be 5 nights a week. I mean, it's a significant investment from the people we've raised funds with, and we're really trying to maximize the ability to get kids on the baseball field. And what's happening is, if you come by these fields in these kind of fringe months, you see kids and coaches out there when it's probably too dark to be out there because they're trying to play. They're squeezing in the extra time because they want to be on the field. So you're blending safety, you're blending need, you're blending desire, but it's all kind of in the effort of getting the fields right. But as far as specific impact to neighbors and number of days, I think it's going to be less than anybody really anticipates, just because, nature is going to take care of most of it. We're working the fringes here. And the reality is probably we're not going to be there as late as you think, and the actual impact to the folks would be pretty minimal.
Thank you, Dave. I did want to mention, just talking to one of my fellow Little League presidents in our district, they have very modern lighting, and the way he explained it to me was, if you were outside the field where the foot candles are 0, and I turned on a flashlight, and I shined it sort of out away from me onto the field, and you were in the dark, you would see that flashlight was on, but that's very different than if I pick up the flashlight and shine it in your face. If I shine it in your face, that's annoying. That's certainly terrible for the neighbors. If I'm standing out there with a flashlight on, if you want to look out your window, you might see a flashlight that looks like it's on 400 feet from your house, but that's very different than that flashlight shining in the window of your house. So that was the way it was described to me. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but.
First of all, thank you so much. You had me at hello. I'm a long time. I had 3 kids go through Radnor Wayne Little League, 2 baseball, 2 softball, and a coach. My husband coached for all those years. Slept with the scorebook. That's true. So we've been with Enki a long time, and my kids have many of their best memories at Enki. I do have just a few questions. The one question I have is, and I think you've answered it. If I'm a neighbor and I'm across Ivan Avenue, will it look like Field of Dreams, kind of like dark and then just light over top of where the light, so it just won't bleed out of there? Is that a good?
Actually, one of our fields with that too.
Okay, so is that kind of a good analogy? Okay. Okay, great, thanks. All right, and then the next question I had is, for the controls and the timing shut off, I'm a little confused at who actually does that. Is it on an automatic? Is it housed by the fields? Is it housed in the township building? Does Tammy have to get on the phone at night?
Yes, good evening, Andrew O'Connell with Musco. So what Brian was referring to was Control Link. And what that does is you can schedule out when the lights will be on and off for 10 years in advance. And you can give certain users access to do that via smartphone, laptop. Some people still call it in. We have very few throughout the country that fax it in. But what I've come to see is, so essentially if I was here and we had lights out on Enki B, I could whip out my smartphone and turn these on right away and say set them for an hour, and they'll go off in an hour.
Just to make a comment on that, we've been doing it for 12 years at Radnor Radnor Memorial Park. I can pull up Control Link right now and shut the lights down. And sometimes when I get an outreach from one of the user groups because they do want to have a hard shut off or, bring it on, at a certain time, I sometimes don't get my password right, even though it does a facial recognition, and I panic because I want to get it done right away, and I call them, and I always get a live person. So, I want to go to bat for you guys, no pun intended, but Musco is really, when you say that, it's really the best in the business for 12 years, and I never had any prior experience with lights until Memorial Park. They've been amazing, and they've done everything that they said that they're going to do under the warranty, and they have local representatives and people they send out on timelines that they state. They've really been, knock on wood, they've been flawless.
That's great to hear. And one more last question I had is, how many, you mentioned that in the district, and I know my kids played in those tournament teams, how many leagues don't have lights? Are we out of the 13, what did you say, 13?
There are at least 7 that have them, so more than half have them.
Okay.
I
just wanted to know where we were in the district.
I'm not sure if it's 4 or 5, including us, that don't have them. It's 4 or 5, and I'm not sure. But it's one or the other. So we are in the vast minority that we do not have a lighted.
And we're
field.
a little bit more tightly populated here in Radnor, right? Like
Yes.
you go to Upper Perk, Lower Perk, it's a whole different situation for, okay.
Yes, for sure. And I will say to those district ones, I think Matt mentioned going away to play at night. We have been lucky enough in Radnor Wayne Little League. We've had quite a few district champions in recent years. So we would love to be able to celebrate those here, winning those instead of having to go. We actually, I guess we beat Lower Merion the one year, and we had to play them in Lower Perk. So Lower Merion wanted to get the game there, but we didn't want them to have a home game, and it should have been our home game, but we didn't have lights, so we couldn't
I
do
also
it.
want to add my support for the safety portion of it is many, many nights when it was getting dark and the kids are like, one more hit, one more, and then in that little space between the two fields, that gets a little nutty. And I would love to see those lights there just for sheer safety.
Completely agree. Thank you.
I was just remembering, Tammy, the controversy when the lights went up at Memorial. There was a lot of concern about spillover, and the debate was heavy. And I remember the sports associations going to bat, and there was no issue once they went up. And Agnes Irwin still has control of those lights, I think.
No, the township does. We
Does
do.
it?
Our department. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so if we are here long enough, I'm sure we're going to get a text or a call from somebody that tells us to do something with the lights. That's usually what happens. I'm just kidding, but it does. So yes, we do control those. So Agnes Irwin paid for those and installed those and managed that project, but the township Parks and Rec department actually manages them and operates them.
Yeah, I recall, right? There was no, after the issue, there was no issue. Installation to usage, how long would the time to set up and get ready to go?
When Andrew and I met with the contractor, installation's about 2 weeks. The duration of they start construction, end construction, about 2 weeks.
Okay. When you turn them off and turn them on, what's the ramp up time to full lighting? Is that a concern at all, or?
He said, just for people listening, it's just like if you walk into the room, turn on the light, the lights come on.
Okay. The only thing that sort of struck me as a concern is the safety issue, the ramp to the parking lot. If we could coordinate something where, especially senior citizens and small children, I know it used to be a muddy mess. Is that? Still is. So if we could do something collectively there and put in some footlights or some short lights, that's a concern that I have.
And I'm sorry for pointing, folks can't see it, but Brian had actually, we had indicated to the township that we would love to do that.
Okay.
Just put in some lighting along the bridge.
Yeah.
On the bridge to
Right.
light it up.
So,
not
yeah, so something separate from what Musco provides. Again, I'm in the electrical industry, and we sell lights, and we sell something called puck lights, and they would go along the bridge or along, as you enter the footbridge, just something that's either solar powered or very easy to turn on and on, probably solar powered, so when it gets dark, they just automatically go on.
Good, yeah.
Extremely thorough presentation, very impressed. I too am in the engineer electrical field myself, so I definitely am nerdy and followed along, so I appreciate that. So just two quick questions. Have you considered, right now I attended a conference 2 weeks ago with PECO, talked to the CEO myself. The rates, PECO rates, electric rates are going up right now due to a variety of reasons. Obviously, inflation is one of them. PECO specifically told all of us, including residents and all, that we would see unprecedented rates. Have you guys considered that in this equation? And then the second question is that with electrification of cars coming on, Radnor Township is looking into those initiatives. The load, is something else of cause. So I'm totally in favor. I have kids. Actually, I grew up in Havertown, so I had the rec lights, the fancy turf field. But my kids are here. So totally in favor. Just think, I'm more the electrical and engineering person. Have you thought about the load, and have you thought about when Radnor moves more toward electrification, which they will? So just that's all.
Yes. So we've mentioned a couple times that we've done significant raising of money for this. We will do a set aside to pay for this. If it triples, I forget if we said triples or quadruples over the years, we will have enough money set aside to pay for this for the full term of the agreement. As far as the electrical load goes, we did a very detailed investigation, I think, of what the field can handle right now, what's on the grid at that point, and I think we are, partly because of the efficiency of the lighting, we are very, 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 very well within the range of what we can capably provide with the existing service at the field.
And Tom, when you're talking about funding, right, utility costs, we also aren't talking about raising fees to players and families to play in the league, right?
Correct, yes.
That money is set aside without raising fees.
Right.
So,
If I recall, when we installed the scoreboards, we laid down initial electric lines, which is one less step that would have to be done.
Yep.
Can we hook into those lines as they are? That was part of the pre-planning going back about 7 or 8 years ago.
Yep, thank you for that. You laid down conduit, extra conduit to go from the panel to the scoreboard on B and to the one side. So, yeah, when Andrew and I met with the contractor, we gave him a site plan, and it will help, for sure.
Good.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
I just
Howard,
want
go
to say
ahead.
it was a great presentation, and you tied it all up for me, with the little non-scientific talk as well. But I am a technology major too, so I understood most of it. But my concern is, with the youth themselves, even during the summer months when nothing else is going on, and there's always that kid that wants to stay for that extra, batting cage or whatever. Is there anything that would prevent him from, staying out there a little bit longer and saying, look, I just want to get a couple of more hits in and things like that?
We would absolutely love to see that. So, that will be part of, obviously, whatever agreement we have for numbers of days or number of hours, if we're limited by that. But otherwise, we would love to have them on. I think part of the reason we've discussed lighting the batting cage and keeping the batting cages lit to the extent we're playing a game, the batting cages would stay lit. We love it. It is amazing to me since those batting cages went in, because we'll have a game going on and we'll have 20 kids come just take batting practice in the batting cages with their dad or their older brother or their sister, and it's absolutely wonderful to see. So that's part of why we want the batting cages not only lit, but if we're playing a game, we want them lit, because we'll get a few kids there watching and they'll come and hit in the cages and grab a snack from the snack shack, so it'll be wonderful. So we do hope that it becomes what Enke Park, for those who've been there on a weekend, it's an experience. It's like an event for the neighborhood. We hope that the night time when the lights are on, it becomes sort of a similar, not an overwhelming number of people, but just a real community event that kids can stay after and enjoy and play a little more ball. That's what we see when we travel to other folks who have lights. The kids feel like they're big leaguers, so they all want to stay out there, keep throwing them. They just want to play catch after the game, which usually the kids just want to run off with their buddies and have an ice cream. But when you have lights, they want to stay out there and play a little bit. And we're always fascinated at other fields that you see parents out there taking pictures of their kids, I guess just because they're on a baseball field with lights on. So it's kind of cool.
And, was the question more or less asking, like, if the lights are on until 10, is there going to be a kid that wants to play until 10:15?
Yeah.
And how do we address that?
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons.
If it becomes a continuous thing down the road.
Right. So that's one of the reasons that when we were talking about scheduling, if we would have all of our Little League practices games over by 10 o'clock, even though the ordinance gives you until 10:30. To make sure that everybody's kind of cleared out of the area.
Okay.
Before the lights turn off.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And
the other thing, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, the other thing, we impress upon our coaches to follow the rules. Okay. We're hard on that. Parking, everything we do. I've become excuse the expression, I'm like a Nazi, a baseball Nazi. I'm going to make sure things are clean. I don't want to lose the goodwill that we've developed with the township. And, one bad apple spoils the bunch. We won't let that happen.
Right.
If someone steps out of line, Tammy will give us a call, and, we'll impress upon our folks that you're done. It's it. And we'll stick to it.
The other thing, like they say, you build it, they will come. Is parking going to be an issue down the road when the lights actually are there and people start to come out more and more to see what this is all about and everything?
It should actually be a lot better because we're only playing on one field. So we do occasionally, especially when we have playoff season or district games, if we're playing on both fields at the same time, sometimes we have parking issues. But usually if it's just one field, we don't have any problem at all. Even if we have some additional folks who want to come out and have the experience, which would be great if we had that. I'm sure it won't be a big enough crowd as if we were playing on the other field at the same time. So I would think we should be fine in that regard.
Following up something Howard said, I guess the bottom line is there supervision while the lights are on?
Yes,
Good.
100%.
Good.
Matt would not allow anything else. There is supervision until the last kid leaves that field. Matt's there yelling at people, and I've seen it happen.
Hard to get out, isn't it? Drug me in.
Any other questions from the board? No. All right, then. Well, thank you very much. That was very helpful, very thorough.
Very.
Thank you all
Really
very much.
appreciate,
We really appreciate
the
your
time
time.
you put into
Thank
making
you.
it a very comprehensive and clear presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Hey, we can do adult games.
Yeah, I'm not going to be the baseball commissioner for the adult league, though.
Are we still on mic?
You need some women on your board. Not yet, I don't think. Well, I'll ask Tammy what she.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. I think this is just supposed to be informative.
May I ask one more question? I'm a sales guy, and it's ABC, always be closing. So can we have a recommendation from you guys tonight, or what are our next steps?
We were just wondering that. Tammy, what do you think in terms of timing and
Well,
what we're ready to
if
do?
if there's a recommendation by the Parks Board tonight, we still have steps to go. So there's also, I know, Tom, I believe you referenced the construction of the MOU. So there would be an operating agreement between Radnor Wayne Little League and the township in terms of how the lights will be operated, maintained, the construction, everything. So that still is something that would have to be underway and get underway. And then ultimately, this is still a project that'll go before the Board of Commissioners.
Right.
So if the Parks Board was to give a recommendation tonight, this just means that you'd be one step closer to having that public forum with the commissioners potentially in January, which is certainly
Yeah, and I think
feasible. I believe their second meeting is later in the month. They do a reorg meeting earlier in the month. So I think the timing could potentially allow for that. Their January meeting, I don't think is until the 23rd, actually.
So I think our hope, Tammy, would be if the Parks Board felt so inclined, would be to get the recommendation from you all tonight, which would allow us to move kind of forward to the Board of Commissioners and start this permitting process if we can get there. So hopefully maybe hit the road for spring and get these up and going. So, you know, every month is really important. And I think that would be, if the board was so inclined, that would be really helpful, I think, for our progress. I don't think we have anything else more to offer in presentation purposes to the Parks Board. So, you know, I think if the board was so inclined, we would certainly appreciate a recommendation.
What do we think, guys? Were you up for something like that?
I see you writing a recommendation.
Yes, I'm drafting.
Thank Mary, our lawyer. I just had one question. Can we make a recommendation with this, that the OMU, whatever it's called, would be?
MOU.
MOU.
Just a memorialization of understanding in terms of how
okay.
the
So
operation
is that all
would go.
that's outstanding for?
It is. I mean, I know we have some templates from prior, just operating agreement with Agnes Irwin. We have an operating agreement right now with Radnor Wayne Little League in terms of the comfort station. So, it's not going to happen this week or, next week, but it's something that would just get underway more quickly. And then obviously if there's additional concerns, that we get within there, we would certainly hear those and try and incorporate those. And then obviously when it goes before the Board of Commissioners, I believe it would end up being, don't quote me on this, it could be an ordinance. Our operational agreement might be an ordinance, so it would not only have introduction at one meeting, but then potentially approval at a second meeting.
I think that's right, Tammy.
All right. I've drafted something. Let's see if this works. I'm just reading what I've drafted. Someone can make the motion. Move that we recommend to the Board of Commissioners the approval of the Radnor Wayne Little League proposal for the lighting of Enki B ball field. And do we need anything more than that?
Put batting cages in there as well?
And, well, their proposal. I mean, lighting of Enki B, well, the ball field.
Maybe you could say consistent with the Little League's proposal.
Well, that's why I said the approval of the Radnor Wayne Little League proposal.
That would be great. Yeah, that.
I'll read it again, okay?
Yeah.
Move that we recommend to the Board of Commissioners the approval of the Radnor Wayne Little League's, I'll make it possessive, proposal for the lighting of Enki B ball field and associated batting cages, just to be crystal clear.
And there's transition lighting too, like we were talking about the potential lighting that would light the area between there and the parking lot, so. And that's important.
Okay, move that we recommend to the Board of Commissioners the approval of the Radnor Wayne Little League's proposal for the lighting of Enki B ball field and associated areas. It's whatever's in the proposal.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
All right, anybody want to make that motion? Claire does.
Yeah.
Second? Okay, all in favor?
Thanks so much.
There you
We
go.
Appreciate that. That's great. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate the time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Glad you brought it up. Held it up another month. Okay, deep cleansing breath. I'm not tired. You get to rest for a long time, Bill. The rest of us will have to keep up this thing. Okay, so old business and Fenimore Woods Park renovations project update. Tammy.
Thank you. So just an update, I know where we last left off on the project in November. We had been waiting on our updated design proposals from our design and engineering firms relative to the stable, as well as relative to the greater comprehensive look at the park. We have been in receipt of preliminary proposals on those, so, and I just to preface, they still require a lot of work. So we did receive copies of those about a week ago. The township engineer, Steve Norsini, and I had a chance to really dig into them, take a quick look and go through and pick out some stuff. There's still a lot of revision that's needed with both firms. So just to clarify, so on the stable, we were working with Gannett Fleming, who came and made a presentation on the concept to be able to retrofit and renovate the stable building at Fenimore Woods into bathrooms and a storage, kind of similar and consistent to what it had been for many, many years. And then Gilmore and Associates have been our lead plan and designing firm on the comprehensive project. So what happened is we, I believe in September, we had a long list of some of the goals and objectives on the park in terms of the updated designing desires, wants, wishes, desires, what have you. And they've gone back and they've re-proposed, put together proposals in terms of these, the proposal, to be able to basically now, okay, we're going to design it, put together a full bid package, full design, full engineering, and everything in terms of the administrative services for the project to be constructed. So with all of that, the price of them are high. At least from what we're seeing. And we want to take an opportunity to tweak those proposals. So our original timeline had us hopefully going to the Board of Commissioners in December so that they could take a look at those. That's now going to be delayed a bit until January, just to give Steve and I an opportunity to tweak those proposals quite a bit. Right now, they have us in the ballpark of about $300,000. And as we've talked about consistently at this board, our money for the project is dwindling. We've had a lot of expenses, a lot of designing that has gone into this already. We're at a budget right now that's around about 1.6. So I just wanted to give an update. That's where we are. I know I had vowed to give that update and give those updates as we move along. So my hope is that we can continue to work with Gilmore and Gannett Fleming and try and tweak those proposals a bit to hopefully get them so that they're ready for the Board of Commissioners at that January, I think I mentioned it was January 23rd meeting. So I wanted to give the Parks and Recreation Board a chance to hear that, voice any concerns. If you have any questions, I'd love to be able to answer those.
For me, I just, I want to wait and see what you guys come up with after you do your tinkering with it.
With that, then, we would be back at the January 12th meeting, which, as we know, is going to be a special meeting at the RTCA, so we'll get to that in a minute. But at the January 12th meeting, I can hopefully give that update and let you know where that is, and then offer an opportunity if the board wants to make any further comments before it goes to the commissioners on the 23rd.
Claire, do you have a question?
I do. Tammy, it would be helpful just for TV land out there and all of us is to kind of review the budget as it, earmark. So if you're saying 300,000 that we want to tweak, that would be for design and engineering. That cuts into that 1.6 pretty considerably. Can you give us a little bit more breakdown as, what we've sort of earmarked for if the stable would be the main priority? Kind of go through those numbers with us to remind us.
Sure. So as of right now, we're at about 1.6 on the project. We have an estimation of about $300,000 in additional design and engineering fees. That would take us down to about 1.3. We know right now, based on the stable concept study and presentation that we heard, there were two options. Our recommendation was to go with the first option, which was just the outfit of the stables, bathrooms, and a storage facility versus being more of a rented facility and usable space. and that was estimated at about 800,000. But just to keep in mind, that 800,000 did include the engineering fees, the design and engineering fees. So let's say another let's say 700,000, just to be safe on that. And then we still have to estimate inspection fees for the project. So generally, we usually go like anywhere from like 8 to 15%, depending on the project, in terms of inspection fees for a project. Since this is a project that's going to be probably multi-prime, there's going to be a level of, there will be a prime contractor that'll be on this. There'll be electrical, there'll be, sewer. There's going to be a lot of different areas that'll be covered within the project. So that we have to allow for inspection. There's going to be a new pavilion, there's going to be a pad that's going to be poured, things like that have to be evaluated. So we were figuring on about 10% on that. So, that got us after, if we took a look at, let's say it was like $700,000 for the actual stable outfit. And again, I'm just ballparking, and these are just based on Gannett Fleming's numbers. That brought us down to just around $500,000 that would be available for the remainder of the park. So that would include the pavilion, that would include the parking lots, the handicap accessibility, the new playground potentially, preparation of that area to make it ADA, make it accessible. We talked about having an accessible spot, parking spot down off of Shimoni Road to get to the pond, to make the pond accessible. So there's a lot that would have to be covered within that. So that's what that's looking like right now. So, the hope is obviously we can get the design and engineering fees down as low as possible. I know there's the prospect of some grants that sit out there. I think this project in particular will qualify heavily for a DCNR grant, which can be a $300,000 plus grant. Doesn't mean we're going to get it, but the township has had some success in the past, so that would be something we would aspire for, among a host of others that could potentially be out there for restoration, renovation, maybe even potentially for the stable.
Thank you so much. I think it's really important that we keep our eye on that budget before it gets away from us, and so we can keep, those priorities of what we've laid out with the community. So I really appreciate you earmarking or, what's the word? Placeholding a little bit.
Absolutely, thank you. And as this would go on to the commissioners, there's a number of things that we would want to make sure that is clarified for them. So we know that with the stable, there's going to be some ongoing maintenance costs that we don't, and operational costs that we don't currently have with some of our current park comfort stations. So I know when we heard the presentation, we heard about an HVAC unit that would operate that and be required to operate the different rooms within that just to keep that building preserved. So there's some operational costs that would go along with that. That building would then turn around and be added to our service agreement plan that we have with J.J. White currently, that is relative to this building, the RAC, and the Public Works building. So, there's a cost for that. There's a utility cost for that. There's ongoing that would be associated with that. So we're trying to understand what those fees would be. Obviously, HVAC replacement, in 15 to 20 years, just a consideration, and something that we're going to want to be mindful of. And then just overall, trying to, see where that kind of puts us. And then also, just being ready to be able to answer the question, okay, if we were to demo, let's just say that, I know that's not a goal, but we want to be prepared that if that question does come up, if we're going to, demo the stable and, put another building that's similar to something that's at Radnor Memorial or Beauconner Park in its place, what's that cost differential and what does that look like? So those are just all important pieces, I think, to be able to help them to make a recommendation in terms of how we go on this. And then I would welcome, of course, any other thoughts on that that could be helpful.
What was the initial cost approximation before the stables were mentioned? The comfort station before, and how is inflation going to affect that now that we're running 2 years behind schedule as it is at now?
Well, first of all, this was a project that really, we started this in 2016, so
Right.
we're way behind.
Yeah.
So, I have to pull those and take a look at those. And again, that's something we are going to want to look at, but it's hard because, we kind of put that in the past, and now, we're post-pandemic, and we're just trying to move forward from where we are and understand it, because the world's just so different.
Yeah.
Anything else on that, guys? Okay, Odoricio, update.
We want to continue to encourage the residents to come out and talk about Odoricio Park. We've got a lot of great things that sit ahead with us in renovation, the prospect of renovations at that park. So much that we're going to have another specialized and focused meeting on January 12th at the Radnor Township Civic Association. We'll be at 248 Highland Avenue. I want to give a strong thank you to Howard and the RTCA board for allowing us to use the facility as a way to get folks in the neighborhood, a quick and easy way to come out and talk about the park project. Howard, I know I gave you some flyers to hand out. If we can put those out so folks can get them at all the great events I know that are coming up at the RTCA and distribute those, that would be fantastic. Any help that I can give to you for that would be great. Anybody at home listening that lives in the neighborhoods surrounding Odoricio Park, if they want to be added to our interest list so they can keep up to date with all of the discussions and the meetings, so that they're aware of when special meetings like the January 12th meeting is going to be taking place, please give a call. Just to reiterate something I reported on in November, I did attend the staff traffic meeting and gave a brief update on the potential ingress-egress to the park, where we could maybe have a little bit of a change there, where we have a one-way in, one-way out at Fairview, and then out into the park and then out through Church, just to hopefully mitigate some of the safety concerns that we know have been raised. We had a couple of special meetings recently. One, I think we met at the park back in September. It's already a couple months ago, but we heard from feedback from the residents that there's some safety concerns in the parking lot in the park on that side, and that maybe one way to mitigate that might be able to create a one-way in, one-way out entrance exit scenario to the park. One thing that will require, though, is we do need a resident to step up and carry the petition for the support. So we've learned through the presentation to the staff traffic, it can be done. It doesn't seem like there's any preclusions to that, that would keep us from, trying to incorporate that. I imagine there'll be some infrastructure change, signage, things like that. But really, it would have to be fueled by the resident support, so we do need them to carry that. So that's just one update, and hopefully we'll talk a little bit more about that in January. And just as far as a timeline, ideally, as we enter 2023, we want to keep talking about improvements to the park until we get to a point where we feel like we've really heard a great, array of feedback, and feel like, we kind of have something that we can now take and engage a designer. I know, I've met with a couple different design firms who could potentially work on this project, and I would love to get them engaged when the time is right. Obviously, we're good at managing this until we get to that point, and then when it finally comes time to actually put something conceptual down, I feel we'll be in a good spot to do that. We do have a couple grants that have been submitted in that regard for planning. We're waiting to hear back from those, so hopefully we have some good news on that too in January. But looking forward to 2023 and really starting to get our hands dirty with that project and hear what the residents want to see and start to put something together.
Sorry. Next topic, the capital budget and Park and Impact Fund project allocation. Update on that, Tammy?
Just two quick updates on that. The township budget was approved at the last Board of Commissioners meeting. Just to reiterate, it does not include a capital budget for parks, but it does include the prospect of a funding for facilities, so a potential bond for facilities that'll be discussed further in 2023. So that could see us having some potential improvements to the Willows Cottage, as well as Radnor Activity Center, of course, with more discussion. And then just a quick update on the Yankee Park project with regards to the playground surfacing, the sunshades, and the roofing system. All of the equipment has been received. We haven't received it, but our contractor has received it. So we are just trying to get a date set for the spring so that we can get that project underway. So that's the last update that I got. I'm just looking to get a lot of that, sort of solidified. That way we can try and, maybe as soon as the weather breaks, depending on our winter that we have, although if it keeps looking like it looks right now, we could easily do
What
the
winter?
project now, but obviously don't want to take
been
that chance
canceled.
right now, with it being winter. But we'll look forward to getting that started as quickly as possible in the spring. We recognize the playground's going to be shut down for a period of time, and trying to make that time frame as short as possible with hopefully some good weather.
Okay, that's good news. Any comments, questions on that? Willows Park Preserve, concerns about dogs in the Willows Park and in Skunk Hollow Trail. Update on that, Tammy?
Sure, I know we had some minor dialogue, I think, in our last meeting, but I know we are looking forward to channeling some of our discussions, and I think we talked about having a bit of a starting point for that, focused on the Willows and Skunk Hollow, and potentially looking towards April to be able to have that discussion with, of course, in advance of that meeting, having a little bit of more of objective that we put out to the public in terms of what we will be discussing and what the topics will entail, give some background, and then overall just trying to get some general input as well as some specific input too, in terms of like what folks are experiencing, what they want to see, suggestions, input, and that sort of thing. So for anybody who's listening relative to the discussion on dogs, I know there are a lot of discussions going on about dogs. I know we have a contingency of folks at near the Cowan neighborhood that want to permit dogs, which is something I believe there's a petition underway for, so that'll be a separate topic that we're definitely going to want to hear and focus on. We know that there's some interest in the Clemacrone Park neighborhood for folks that would like to see dogs in certain areas of the park potentially, not within the playing fields or the basketball courts and things like that, but potentially on the walking paths. So we know that that's something that sits out there. We've heard from some residents that want to see some enclosed fencing at Friends of Radnor Trails Park, so I know that's something we're going to give consideration to. We have a potential project over at that park that might shut it down for a while with the stormwater management project. I think our township engineer is going to come and talk to us a little bit more about that in February, I believe. But that'll give us an opportunity. We can maybe evaluate changing the fencing schematic at that park if we think we want an enclosure. That'll be a time to have that discussion. So each of the park areas, we know Hartford has some different needs and wants, in terms of users there, as far as fencing to separate the parking lot from the main dog park. We've heard, interest in having a specific smaller dog area for, an enclosed smaller dog area at that park, potentially on the opposite side of the parking lot. So there's a lot of sort of micro discussions going on, but I think we talked about our starting point being the Willow Skunk Hollow, just given the original presentation that was given to us, by you, Mary, on behalf of the WPP, obviously concerns there. And as this has evolved, we've started to hear a lot of pros and cons with regards to the Willows Trail and the Skunk Hollow Trail and the access there. So I think that's going to be, since the bulk of the feedback's surrounding that topic, that's where we want to start and surround our discussion. But like I said, with a preface of some framework for how that will go.
That sounds good. Any comments, reaction, anybody? We're all good with that? Thanks, Tammy. Parks and Recreation Board member park steward program. This is basically, we're all park stewards. We all have assigned parks. Anybody have anything to report? Any concerns, any problems, any kudos for our parks? Yeah, I have
I
nothing.
have some kudos. It's so great to see, the trees growing at Odorosio that got put in the spring, and every time you go to any of my parks, they're always well taken care of, and it's great to see the soccer fields at Philippone, and it's just really, it warms the heart. A lot of pickleball, that's fantastic. Sometimes we get through these projects and we don't really take the time to look back and say, wow, a lot has happened, a lot has changed, a lot has been improved. So I'm always grateful when I go through my parks.
Yeah, I should speak up for the Willows. I noticed that there were new trees planted at the Willows, and it looks really good. I hope they'll be healthy, and it's just it's nice to see. Anybody else? We're good? Anyone out there in the public want to participate? I'm seeing a lot of empty chairs. I think we are ready to adjourn, if anybody cares to make a motion in that direction.
I'll make a motion.
Anybody second? All in favor? Aye. Good night, everybody. That was a meaty meeting.